From the CISO Series, it's cybersecurity headlines.
Apple pulls iCloud end-to-end encryption in the UK. Anagram takes a gamified approach to employee cybersecurity training, and U.S. employee screening firm confirms breach. These are some of the stories that our guest, my colleagues, and I have selected from this past week's cybersecurity headlines. And now we're looking forward to some insight, some opinion, and definitely some expertise from our returning guests coming out for the third time, Andrew Wilder, CISO at Vetcor. Of course, we have to bring on the 3 stars for the third time on. Andrew, though, as happy as I am to see you again, I have to ask, how are you mourning the death of Skype today?
Well, thank you for asking. I've given a lot of thought to this, Rich. My idea is that I'm going to set my status to away forever. How about you? How are you mourning Skype's death?
I'm going to say goodnight, sweet prince, on May 5th when it finally goes dark, and yeah, and I'll still keep it installed and looking for updates at all times. I think that'll be the most appropriate way to celebrate it. Another thing we have to celebrate though today is our sponsor, Conveyor. From security questionnaires to SOC 2 sharing, Sue handles all of that, plus every step in between. We'll hear more about Sue at the break. Remember, you can join us on YouTube Live. To do so, go to CISOseries.com, hit the events drop down, and look for the cybersecurity headlines week in review image. Be sure to click on it to join us. You can join in with some comments. I do have to remind the chat, though, that we do have a very strong no pun policy in the chat. We had to issue some warnings already, but thrilled to have Kevin Farrell, CCL, and a bunch of our regulars in the chat already, making it lively and a welcome place. Just kidding. All puns are welcome. Before we get into news, we got a loaded week of news today to cover. Just a quick reminder that all of Andrew's opinions are his own, not necessarily, though, of his employer, staff, affiliates, friends, family, or pets. So let's, without further ado, jump into the news. First up here, Apple pulls iCloud end-to-end encryption in the UK. This move stems from the UK government's request for encryption backdoor access under its Investigatory Powers Act, or I guess known as the least delicious IPA. End-to-end encryption is an optional setting for most iCloud data, including iCloud backup, photos, and notes, ensuring only users can access their data even in the event of a cloud breach. The Washington Post said the British government's mandate has no known precedent in major democracies, always a statement that gives you the warm and fuzzies. Apple said they are gravely disappointed that these data protections will be not available to UK customers, given the continued rise of data breaches and privacy threats. So, Andrew, the issue of concern, pretty obvious here. Of course, could represent the thin end of the government surveillance wedge. What's your take on this?
So I'm a big proponent of Apple's encryption, and in fact, I recommend it to other people. I use it myself. I think it's a great thing to protect yourself because there's a lot of cases of people getting access to other people's private data. Apple many years ago, when the privacy debate heated up, was saying, when everyone was asking them, the FBI and everybody else was asking them to create these backdoors, they said no. Because if we create a backdoor, guess who else is going to get access to that backdoor? Bad people. And they're going to use that in bad ways. And so they intentionally didn't do that. I think this is really a negative thing. I would say, why an undelicious IPA? Why would you do this? It's a horrible thing. So it's news. It's exciting, but it's going in the wrong direction, in my opinion.
We've had kind of 2 pieces of news with backdoors, because Sweden is also considering a law to require backdoors and things like messaging apps and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
In that case, we've seen Signal and some other more privacy focused apps just saying we would fully withdraw from the market. In this case, it's Apple taking away a feature. It's interesting to see that Apple will continue to do business. Obviously, the UK, pretty big market, I'm sure, for them. But just essentially saying, hey, you would now have one less privacy feature for your users.
Yeah, I would venture to say that not too many people are using the advanced data protection. It's not a big thing, right? Apple's not going to lose a lot of business over this, but the kind of the message that it sends, and you talked about the precedent that it might send, that's really a negative thing.
All right, next up here, Anagram takes a gamified approach to employee cybersecurity training. Anagram, formerly known as Cypher, is revamping employee cybersecurity training with a gamified approach. Instead of annual lengthy sessions, Anagram is offering more frequent interactive lessons, including phishing simulations. The startup pivoted in 2024 after realizing non-security employees were the weakest link. I hope they didn't spend a lot of money on that research, and has since landed major clients like Disney and Thomson Reuters. So Andrew, it's a known fact that people can't remember most of what they're taught in any topic. It's actually an exponentially downward curve called the Ebbinghaus curve that demonstrates this. I'm curious, do you think gamification will work better?
So my answer is cybersecurity training as we know it today is broken. Okay. Everybody is doing the click through as fast as they can to get to the end of the training so they can skip it and go to the questions and pass the test, hopefully pass the test. Phishing training is broken because people are feeling attacked. You get punished if you click on an internal phishing test. There's all these things. I like Anagram's approach to this, right? Because what they are doing in this gamification approach is they are teaching people to get into the mind of the attacker. And if you can experience that, it's kind of like when you do a tabletop exercise, right? Because in a tabletop exercise, you understand what it's like to be in the middle of a cyber attack. And in this case, they're helping people to understand what it's like to be an attacker. And as you think in that mindset, then you can think from the other side as well and realize, hey, if I'm getting attacked, these are some of the tactics that they might want to use. And especially with generative AI and all of these new tools that are out there, all of the things we've been telling people for years about how to spot a phishing email, those things are going away, right? Misspellings and different fonts and weird, from addresses, all of that stuff is gonna stop. So I am a big fan of anything that's going to take this in a different direction. And I think Anagram has done that.
Yeah, I have to like a lot of traditional security awareness is like, the pain will resume until you get the percentage that we're looking for here, when
Mhm.
we're talking about boring regular quarterly or yearly classes or something like that. Yeah, any way you can tie like a dopamine hit, no matter how small, or hey, I got a badge for doing this,
Yes.
that kind of stuff. Like you're still always fighting that Ebbinghaus curve, but I feel like you have a better chance of at least motivating your staff to go through with it if it's less punishment and more hey, good job, right?
Yeah, the carrot versus the stick. And I like what CCL is saying. It doesn't have to be the answer, but the more options that you have, and it also really depends on company culture. There's companies out there that do these kind of funny videos. I worked in companies where funny videos would never work, right? No one is going to do that. But there's some companies where that might be fine. So it's really having more options to train people and using more things to do it. I think that's a great approach. Let's get more options. Let's have more things out there that can help people.
Yeah, yes, and is probably the name of the game there. All right, next up here, U.S. employee screening firm confirms breach. Uh, DISA Global Solutions provides employment screenings and background checks to a third of Fortune 500 companies. This week, it submitted a filing with Maine's Attorney General confirming it detected a cyber incident on April 22nd, 2024. After investigation, it was found that the illicit network access began back on February 9th. In a filing with the Massachusetts Attorney General, it was confirmed that attackers obtained social security numbers, credit cards, and other financial information, as well as scanned ID documents from some screened individuals. A big week for disclosing things to New England attorneys general. The filing also states that the company did not definitively conclude the specific data procured, so it can't name specific victims. Like it doesn't have the ability to do so. No word on who orchestrated the attack or why the company waited almost a year to disclose it. Andrew, I need to ask a question. Should there be a category for like vilifying companies that make money obtaining and selling data about people and then seem careless about it when it comes to background screeners, data brokers, that kind of stuff? I, I we can't say what exactly or who exactly had stuff stolen from them. They don't tell anybody about it for almost a year. Am I wrong in having a little umbrage here?
I think your umbrage is validated. So a couple of things that are bothersome about this. The first is how long it took to report it. If you look at the SEC's requiring, rules, there's, a number of days since you're aware of the incident, right? I think it's 4 days since you become aware of it. This is way too long to wait. The second thing is, this really kind of grinds my gears in these things, is these words that they use to minimize the attack, right? It would be amazing if one time somebody just went out there and said, you know what, we've been attacked. They got access to all of our data. It was really bad. We're doing things to fix it. But every time you see these very kind of lawyered words of, oh, it's the sum of our network, and we can't identify exactly how bad it was. And that bothers me as well. And the third thing that bugs me about it is we couldn't figure out which data they took. All right. So how's your data security program going there? Do you know about all of your data? Do you know who has access to your data? Do you know where your sensitive data is? So if you can't answer any of those questions, you should probably be, spinning up a data security program, because that's what we do. That's how we know where all of our data is. So if any attacker says we stole all your data, we're like, well, we know what data it is. And so we know what data you took, and then we can make a better decision instead of just going, well, we trust you, whatever you say, attacker. Anyway,
the silver lining is it should be easy to improve their security program if we could, like tracking what we have, and if someone access it. I think that would be a good first step. Okay, I'm glad I'm not alone in feeling like this is like a trifecta of all things I have a big problem with when it comes to a data breach. Okay, all right, I'm feeling better in our camaraderie over this. All right. Before we move on to our next story, though, I have to spend a few moments with our sponsor for today, Conveyor. Let me guess. Another security questionnaire just landed in your inbox, which means all the follow-up tasks you don't have time for are close behind. What are you going to do? Here's a better question. What would Sue do? Sue is Conveyor's new AI agent for customer trust. She handles the entire security review process, like answering every customer request for a SOC 2 from sales, completing every questionnaire, or executing every communications and coordination task in between. No more manual work, just a quick review when she's done. Ready to let Sue take the reins? Learn more at conveyor.com. That's CONVEYOR.com. All right, next up here, firing of 130 CISA staff worries cybersecurity industry. The dismissal of over 130 cybersecurity professionals from the agency is a major blow to the U.S. and allied security, warns expert David Shipley, CEO of Beauceron Security. He criticizes the cuts as reckless, likening them to accelerating towards an iceberg. To the move, orchestrated by the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, as we've all seen in the headlines, may strain international alliances and reduce trusted information sharing. We've heard rumblings about the U.S. and Five Eyes as of late. Shipley notes that while security personnel have maintained stability despite political turmoil, these layoffs threaten that continuity. Frank Dixon of IDC also highlights the lack of transparency regarding the impact on national security and CISA's operations. So, Andrew, it seems that the current administration is doing its best in firing people without regard to work that they actually do. Without getting necessarily into the politics of this, what does this do? How do you react to this as a CISO? I guess, like, how do you take this kind of information, which we know is going to have some kind of impact?
So, CISA or CISA, I'm not sure how you're pronouncing it this time, Rich. I call them CISA. So, they are a partnership between the government and CISOs today.
Mm-hmm.
And I very well know my local CISA rep. We've done tabletop exercises with CISA, which they do for free for any company that asks them to. Jen Easterly, their former director, is a kind of a hero in the cybersecurity community, and what they've done in terms of simplifying things and helping. And they also have all of these things that you can subscribe to tell you about the biggest breaches that are happening. So a lot of times before any of my vendors say, oh, this is bad or whatever, I'll say, well, I already got that from CISA earlier today and we're already working on it. So it's a really negative thing, again, from a cybersecurity, from a CISO perspective, from these relationships that we've built. And I feel bad for the people that have been laid off here. These are great cybersecurity professionals. So I saw Jen posting something on LinkedIn about trying to help those people out. So totally supporting that as well. And what's next for us if we keep getting rid of all of these again, staying out of the politics of it, but if we keep getting rid of all these people who are great partners with us in the government.
Yeah, the mandate from the new administration is to tighten the focus of CISA to get them, take them to a more essential mission, which we usually read as less election misinformation and stuff like that. But there had been a real feeling of going back into the first Trump administration of CISA, whatever you want to call it, moving the cybersecurity poverty line in a really meaningful way, right? Like,
Yep.
I mean, you mentioned about the tabletop stuff, but also just in terms of like free tooling for SMBs, like working with private industry to provide access to kind of entry level tools, but one that could make a big difference for smaller businesses and stuff like that. And I hope, however they come out of it, that if I hope that mandate can still be one part of CISA's mission, and two, that they'll have the staff and the resources to keep delivering on it. Because as Maxtronic says in the chat, CISA, they do great work.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up small and medium-sized businesses there too, Rich, because they're really the victim here. Because they really rely on CISA. It's, if you've ever worked in small and medium-sized businesses in the cybersecurity space, that they're really lacking in expertise.
Mm-hmm.
And so to have a government organization like CISA that they can partnership, that they can do tabletops, that they can get learnings, they can get these kind of announcements that are coming in, that's really helpful for them. Now, if you're a Fortune 1000 cyber, maybe it's not as much of a blow to you, but for those small and medium-sized businesses, this is a big thing.
And Jen, if you ever want to come on the Weekend Review, you are more than welcome. Just
I think she has more free time now, so we can get
exactly. I mean, you have nothing else to do, so come on.
I didn't say that.
All right, next up here, thousands of exposed GitHub repositories, now private, can still be accessed through Copilot. Security researchers at Israeli cybersecurity company Lasso found that Microsoft Copilot retains access to thousands of once public GitHub repositories, even after they've been set to private. Using Bing's cache, Lasso identified over 20,000 impacted repositories, exposing sensitive data from major companies like Google, IBM, and Microsoft. Microsoft classified the issue as low severity. It seems that bad GitHub repository news appears on this show every week, or at least exposed. I don't want to qualify it too much, but here we see it colliding with very new technology, in the case, the Copilot version of AI, both of which, I would point out, owned by Microsoft. Once again, it seems like the technology is racing far ahead of the average person's ability to play it safe. I'm curious, for you, Andrew, is this as low severity as Microsoft suggests?
Definitely not. Definitely not. So we see when we look at these Copilot private installs that they're doing at large companies, you see exactly the same kind of thing. So people who are doing for many years security by obscurity, hiding a file somewhere where they shouldn't or whatever, you can just go in and go, hey, show me Rich's salary. And Copilot is happy to go, boom, here it is. And then you'll be so surprised at how much more money Rich is making than you are. But so there's that part of it. And the other thing is, all of these big GPTs are trained on public data. And that's why we see things like hallucination, right? Because public data is not all correct data, right? So there's no way to know that it's getting trained on good data. So that's part of the problem. And if it was out there at one time and you've hidden it now, well, that's great for people searching on the internet right now. But when Copilot was trained, it was still public and it was still open, and too bad for you, kind of thing. So yeah, not low severity in my opinion.
Well, and especially with the lag in training sets, right, between the different models, you could have over a year in terms of that. So even with best of intentions, there's always going to be a situation where, yeah, this was public, but good luck. GPTs are written in ink. I don't know if that's quite right, but that's definitely another consideration.
Yep.
All right, and our final story for today, OpenAI bans ChatGPT accounts used by Chinese group for spy tools. In its most recent threat intelligence report, the makers of ChatGPT described 2 operations believed to belong to Chinese threat actors, in which ChatGPT was used to edit and debug code for what appeared to be AI tools designed to ingest and analyze posts and comments from social media platforms, things like Facebook and X, in search of conversations on Chinese political and social topics. In addition, the threat actor used ChatGPT to generate descriptions and sales pitches for these tools. So, Andrew, here we have ChatGPT used as a cog in a much bigger machine and reveals the types of brilliant subterfuge that nation states and cyber criminal gangs are capable of thinking up. This story was on your selection for this week. Obviously struck a chord. What are your thoughts on this?
So I think the first question that I would ask to everybody is, does this surprise you? Like, with great power comes great responsibility. We've got this amazing tool. It's definitely being used for good. It's also going to be used for bad. Now, what surprises me is that they're using the default version of Chat GPT that you and I use. I was hoping to read the story of how they're using Fraud GPT or Worm GPT,
Yeah.
or one of these like hacker, GPTs that will let you do any of the negative stuff that you want to try to do with Chat GPT, and it won't let you if you're an attacker. So yeah, I'm glad to see that they've done that. Do you think that OpenAI has successfully banned all of the accounts used by Chinese hacking groups? Definitely not, right? Like every forum that we have everywhere is full of fake accounts, and how you can try to police that and do that, good luck. But I'm glad they made some progress, but I'm not surprised.
Well, and especially like the use case that they're giving here is also like I'm in a social media marketing company and I'm trying to build this tool. Like just like if a separate session then creates like, okay, create this tool, and then how do I sort conversations by topics relevant to China, that like to me is I I don't know, like how do you stop that when it's just you're asking a tool to help you create another like general purpose tool. Yes, I'm sure, I'm glad they found it here. I'm glad that they are trying to find it, like you said, glad to find these kind of operations, but I have to imagine with a little sophistication this would be almost impossible to find.
Yep, I would agree.
All right. Before we get out of here, just want to give a thank you to everybody in our chat, making us having some fun in there. Some appreciation for Jen Easterly, former head of CISA. Francisco was saying, yeah, sad news with the firing of the CISA staff, and definitely wanted to give that some time on the show. Thanks to everybody getting involved in the chat. Always helps make this show better. Before we get out of here with you, Andrew, though, any story that you reacted strongly to this week, a thumbs up or an eye roller for you?
So I'm going to give one thumbs up, because all of the stories that we talked about were kind of negative, right? We had the Apple one about the ADP and the people stealing from DISA and CISA firing people, and the GitHub stuff and the Chat GPT stuff. But there was one positive story we talked about this week, right, Rich? And that was this Anagram company that is taking this gamified approach. Let's go for positive this week, right? It's Friday. Let's do it. So that one excited me this week.
Yeah, and hopefully it will not be notable that like positive like just-in-time interactive training, like I hope in the near future that is not a notable story, but it definitely is, and I'm glad we were able to give it a highlight for sure. Thank you so much, Andrew Wilder, CISO over at Vetcor, for just bringing the expertise, the positivity to end the show. How can we not love that? Where can people find you online if they are so inclined?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm on there, fairly regularly. I post some stuff. I am hiring. So if you know someone who is a network security manager who's looking for a role at an amazing company, great people, great mission, 900 pet hospitals, saving our pets, taking care of them. And also, I'll be speaking at RSA on Monday morning. I don't remember the exact time, but I'm sure you can find it in the agenda. And I'm with Dee Dee and Doreen and another gentleman who I can't remember his name right now. Sorry, but we're talking about ethics in cybersecurity. So something that's big. And come join us. Come heckle me. I'd love to see you out there, and looking forward to it.
Well, thank you so much, Andrew. I cannot wait to have you on a fourth time. As always, exceptional, and I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Rich.
Thanks also to our sponsor for today, Conveyor. From security questionnaires to SOC to sharing, Sue handles all that, plus every step in between. Also, again, thanks to our audience today. I know we can't always get everything up on screen as it's coming in, but we appreciate being here, making the chat better and making the show better. Please join us next week. First, we got a busy Friday. It starts off with Super Cyber Friday. Our topic of discussion is going to be hacking the commodification of cybercrime, an hour of critical thinking about how your security program changes with the entry barrier goes away. That's at 1 p.m. Eastern. And then, the weekend review. It starts at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. You're planning on joining in the chat. I know. Update your calendar. Be here for the live show. It's a blast. To register to join us on YouTube and add your comments live, just go to the events page at CISOSeries.com. And of course, in the meantime, you get your daily news fix every single day through cybersecurity headlines. Give us about 6 minutes. We'll get you all caught up. Until the next time we meet, for myself, for our producer, Steve Prentice, for Andrew, for all of us here at the CISO Series family, here's wishing you and yours to have a super sparkly day.
Cybersecurity headlines are available every weekday. Head to CISOSeries.com for the full stories behind the headlines.